I'm Coulter Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefer?
Yeah, man.
Mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters. We are live. Yes, we are live here at lifestyleradio.net as well as our sister station, 420radio.ca. And you're with News Hawks, Kim Cooper, myself, Al Graham, as we bring you our Canadian and International Reefer Report. This week it's for May the 28th to June the 6th, 2018. Hello, Kim. How are you today?
Oh, not doing too bad, Al. Busy life as usual. Lots going on in the cannabis world as well as my personal life. So busy, busy, busy.
There's never a dull moment, is there?
Yes, that's for sure. Going to dive right in, and I guess we're going to talk, of course, with what's going on in Canada these days. We're going to start off with, of course, the senators.
Yes, we're heading up the Senate as we've been starting the last few shows off, let everybody know what's going on. And the latest news from there is that the Senate has proposed a ban on cannabis swag.
Yeah, cannabis swag is being banned. They're allowing us to do our homegrowns nationwide without impediment from provinces. But now swag is seems to be on the chopping block for some. I don't understand the logic here.
Well, it's not as if, say, you've got a T-shirt that has, cannabis on it, blah, blah. It's not going to be illegal. What's going to be illegal is they're not going to be able to, the companies, not just the licensed producers, because it just says the marijuana companies or cannabis companies wouldn't be allowed to market, their brand, like their names, right?
Yeah.
So I'm taking that as more than just the licensed producers.
Yeah, for sure. That would be across the board for all cannabis consumed products across the board. I would think that's how I'm taking it anyway. Currently, we see people branding all kinds of stuff. Everything from T-shirts to backpacks to iPhone cases have branding on them. All of this will be illegal with the new regime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you take a sheet T-shirt and you get something created, that's a whole different situation.
Yeah. But it's not going to be allowed to have any sort of company logo associated with any kind of cannabis-related product.
Yeah, basically right now, every once in a while, the Molsons will have a T-shirt in a case.
Yep.
Yeah, cannabis companies wouldn't be able to do that.
No, not anymore. And there's numerous LPs that have branded swag. I mean, we've just finished the conclusion of the Lyft conference in Toronto. I mean, you want to talk swag?
Oh, people were taking all kinds of it home.
Yeah. I mean, you walk out of there with bags and bags and bags of stuff, and it's all branded, and it all has to do with cannabis. How wide-reaching these regulations are going to be, we'll have to wait and see on how stringent the rules are going to come down on these. Is it just going to be products in particular that'll be exempt from the branding? Or, I mean, are we going so far as you can't wear a Ready Can T-shirt?
Yeah.
With a pot leaf on it. Is that exempt, or is that going to become under the new rules? I'm not really sure.
It's like we're reversing things. Right now, I'm walking around with a hoodie on from a seed company. Yeah. That would be branded. That would be illegal. Yeah. But yet the cannabis, that T-shirt's, that hoodie's legal now, but it's going to be illegal. And the cannabis that most people recreationally will be consuming is illegal now, but will be legal. So this is almost, they're being reversed.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't understand why. I don't see the why or the benefit to this kind of regulation within the regime. I don't understand the why here. I really don't.
I don't look at this as if, the police are going to pull over and give somebody a ticket for wearing a T-shirt. It's just the companies won't be able to produce them, and any type of enforcement would be dealt with through them, not by you walking down the street.
Yeah, that's right. Individuals aren't going to be yanked off the streets because they've got a T-shirt on or an iPhone case cover that has, something that's against the new rules. But companies that look at producing this kind of swag in the future, that's where they'll drop the hammer, is down on them.
Well, one of the licensed producers, a fellow from Aurora, he says making clothing illegal will simply make it more attractive to youth. And basically, it's an unenforceable law, which yet again is bad laws. Yeah,
that's right. More bad laws following something that we're trying to clean up with a bad law. And it's being implemented with more bad laws. I don't understand. I cannot wrap my head around the thinking on this. Somebody would have to really sit down and explain this to me. And I would venture a bet that I would have some pretty legitimate arguments for whatever they say.
Well, Trina Fraser, who is a leading lawyer in the cannabis industry, she says, so it would be legal to buy the cannabis, but not the shirt. Mm-hmm. And it just, doesn't make sense. But this thing is one of 40 adopted amendments. Yeah, by the Senate, and then they plan on their vote on Thursday, this coming Thursday, and we'll find out. But 40 changes, 40 amendments.
Wow. Yeah, this Thursday is C Day instead of D Day, I guess, in the Canadian House, in the Senate. So we'll wait and see. They're only sort of publicizing and talking about a few of the amendments that they've had. So I'm quite anxious to see the full list when it's released finally.
Yeah, and then the House of Commons has got to deal with those 40 amendments.
That's right.
Afterwards, which would be probably about a week and a half to 2 weeks at the most, because then they go for summer recess.
Yep, then they go for summer recess. So, and we know they want this all levels of government want this done prior to recess, so they can come back in September and say, okay, we're ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. All righty, let's move on from the Senate and let's head north.
Yeah, sounds good. We're going all the way up to Nunavut.
Yes, they've came out with their draft of their legislation, and that includes prohibiting homegrown cannabis.
Yeah. With what we just discussed regarding the Senate and the amendments that they're making, with them leaning now towards not allowing provinces to do this, once again, Nunavut's on that short list now with Quebec and a couple of others that are taking this stand. And I can see this being challenged in the courts. You cannot outlaw something provincially that is legal federally.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know that there was some discussion about it there last week. So, yeah, it's going to have to go before the courts for sure.
Yeah, for sure. This is going to go wind up before the courts. The one thing that I will say about Nunavut is I'm pleased to see that they're incorporating small business, craft business, and privately owned shops in their regime, but they're also incorporating lounges right off the bat.
Yeah, which is all good. That stuff's good, but it's too bad they're not allowing people to grow cannabis.
Yeah, I wish we could have one province somewhere in this country that was on board with all of it. I mean, we've got the ones that are allowing lounges and personal grow and personal private growing or private sales and stuff, but they're not allowed growing. And then other ones are allowing growing, but they're not allowing lounges. One province out of all of them that we have in this country, including our territories, you would think would be able to come up with a regime that is right for all of us.
That's right. Yeah. Well, they say here in Nunavut that one of their biggest things that they heard was that people didn't want cannabis grown in homes because they said it would normalize its use for youth and increase the risk of damage to housing units from mold or fire.
Yeah. Well, once again, misinformation, right? We've been proven this in the courts, going way back, that home growings don't subject homes to mold and all of that kind of thing on a small scale. So that's already been debated and proven in the courts. So once again, I think the legislators in this province need to get educated.
Yeah, well, also there's a law here that prohibits you giving it to somebody without them knowing, without their consent. So you know those brownies. Johnny takes brownies out of the fridge and gives them to his buddies.
Yep.
And Johnny could be an adult too, right? So
that's right. Nobody's saying Johnny's a little boy.
That's right. Exactly. Just thought I'd mention that. So yeah, yet again, a good news, bad news scenario as we're seeing in other provinces. And territories. So
yeah, that's for sure. That's for
sure. Talking about other provinces.
Yeah, we're on our way to Saskatchewan.
Yeah, they announced 51 retailers who will sell cannabis.
Yeah, Saskatchewan is maybe half the size of Ontario?
Yeah, I think so. I'm looking to see if I see any numbers in here, but no, there's no numbers. It's nowhere near
about half the size of Ontario. They're going to start off with 51. Ontario, as we all know, of course, is starting off with 40 in the first year for a province double the size.
Yes, they have. So these 51 people, they say that they represents the next step in the process of having a privately operated cannabis retail system carefully regulated, according to their minister responsible for all of this. Yeah. He says there was a lot of interest in the public request for proposal processes, resulting in many new businesses that will invest in their province. Don't all provinces want something like that?
Yeah, well, you would think so. They also used sort of a lottery process for runner-ups and sort of a thing that required a permit. And they said that they're happy with the runner-ups as well. Yeah,
that's right. Use a two-phase proposal or request system, and then they did this lottery, and they're happy with everything. They say the successful proponents have 45 days to begin the permit process. As a condition to their permit, retail cannabis permittees must be operating within 12 months of legalization.
Yeah, within 12 months. I mean, they're doing good things over there with the privatization. And I guess they're happy with the way the things are working out with justice system and police, and as well as their business associations there. One of the gentleman's quoted in saying, I think overall between justice, police, and the SLGA and the actual municipality, we have a responsibility overall to ensure that businesses are operating legal. So in our view, that's a police matter more than the SLGA. So they're using all avenues to clear everybody and to make sure that hopefully this system starts off with good people behind the helm.
Yeah, the retail stores must be standalone operations selling only cannabis and cannabis accessories as defined by their laws. And the alcohol sales will not be permitted in the stores. And they're also subject to municipal bylaws, like you said. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And one of those people, I'm sure there's a few people out there who are pretty surprised, but there's also our next article here is on one of those people who did get one of those licenses.
Yeah, a young lady was chosen. She's only 23 years old. She's a student in Saskatoon, and she was chosen to head up one of the standalone stores.
Yeah, one of 7 that are going to be in the city of Saskatoon, and she is going to have it. She says it was her birthday, and she says, this is my birthday on steroids.
I guess so, eh? She's over the moon about the whole situation. She said that she's looking forward to operating a new business in there.
Yes, that's right. She beat out more than 150 other candidates for one of 7 highly sought after permits. And the interesting thing is that she has never run her own business before.
No, she says she drew up the application from her bedroom. She's quoted here in saying, "I actually did it all by myself," which was quite an accomplishment, given the experience of one unsuccessful Saskatoon applicant that knew what she was doing and never got chosen.
Yeah, people were getting lawyers and everything involved, and here she did it in her bedroom, like you say, submitted it, and her name was picked.
She got picked. So, I mean, at least in Saskatoon or in Saskatchewan, the little guy has a chance.
Yeah, that's right. They do. It was surprising when I saw that, and I know it was pretty popular on Facebook. It was being shared around. Somebody like this got it because, we're all thinking corporate or big companies, right?
That's right.
Or,
this young lady's
governments.
Yeah, and the young lady is a patient as well. She suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, and she knows the ordeals that patients go through, and that was her inspiration for doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as her store will mainly deal with recreational users, but she'll have this, medical side as well. I'm sure will be involved in all.
Personal use expertise and use as a medical patient is paramount in the new industry. I think people will gravitate towards more stores that they're able to get credible information from, rather than a glazy-eyed person behind the counter that doesn't have a clue.
Yeah. Well, I see it's a family situation here, because also, financial qualifications have to come in there. 23-year-old doesn't always have this kind of cash, but I see the family does own an auto body business, Juicy's Auto Body Shop. They're going to help her out.
Yeah, family-backed, student-run, patient-owned. Great story for sure.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's good to see somebody like that succeed.
Yeah, for sure. Not so much success going on in the Ontario front, with the LCBO president speaking out about when our shops are going to be ready.
No, that's right. He just basically confirmed last week that the OCS stores here in our province won't be open until at least the fall.
At least the fall. So Kathleen Wynn's dream of having 40 shops open by the end of this year may not even materialize for Ontarians.
Well, come Thursday, we don't know. This could be all changed around.
Yeah, this is true.
Election.
This is true. Yeah. We've got an Ontario election coming up. So right now the plans are in place under Kathleen Wynne. That could very easily change with the new regime if we get one in Ontario. But as it stands, the people behind the proposals to build the new shops and get them operating, LCBO president says there's no way that they're going to be ready, at least minimum, until the fall. And highly doubtful that we'll have 40 stores open by the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree as well.
Yeah. And for province this size, I mean, that's going to be problematic.
People won't be going to the local OCS store to get their buds for the weekend this summer.
No, and once legalization regime does happen, people will become accustomed to using whatever avenue they choose to use. By the time these stores open, they just won't go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. It's always easy access.
That's right. And we'll have established something else somewhere else in some other avenue, and that's what we'll just continue to do even after the stores open. Yeah,
and if the House of Commons doesn't deal with these 40 amendments from the Senate in time, maybe we'll be looking at Christmas buds instead of fall buds.
Yeah, could be.
Well, I saw somebody predict next Christmas, not the upcoming Christmas, next Christmas. They're talking 2019.
Coming soon to a region near you. If you're in Northern Ontario, I'm with him. I predict next Christmas for us as well.
Yeah, you have a point there. Yeah.
Much depends on where you live. But speaking of where you live, it seems that somebody in the cannabis industry that has been a proponent for legalization over the years has jumped ship and chosen a new home for himself.
Yes, which raised some questions for some people online. I saw people were questioning how could one of the guys that were involved with the legalization task force also now join a licensed producer, and so some people had some questions about it, concerns.
Yeah, that's for sure. Of course, we are talking about Dr. Mark Ware. He has recently joined and signed on with Canopy Growth Corporation as their chief medical officer.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Dr. Mark Ware, who I've always been sort of behind him when knowing that he's there speaking on behalf of patients and talking about medical cannabis and being able to he's one of the only guys that ever got the Canadian government to help fund a study on smoked cannabis and pain.
Yeah. He's done great things for the cannabis community in the past, and he's been a very big proponent in government and the medical cannabis and the medical industry as well. You're preaching about cannabis and the benefits of it. Many people, like you say, are disillusioned, I guess, by his jump to Canopy Growth, especially I think to Canopy Growth. I think this pill may have been swallowed a little bit more easier if it was any LP but Canopy Growth. A lot of patients are not big fans of that corporation.
No, there's a lot of people who aren't big fans of them, but obviously somebody's buying their product.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. All righty, Kim, shall we move on to our last story before the break?
Yeah, last one before the break, we're going to talk about some women in the industry.
Yes, we are, as I hit the bong. Yes, we are. Yeah, 10 of them. 10 leading Canadian cannabis industry ladies.
Yeah, this story is coming out of WikiLeaf. There's a lot of high hopes as we await Canadian legalization in cannabis this summer. Everybody knows that the United States has been structurally biased favoring white men, have resulted in the disproportionate exclusion of women and people of color from the highest positions in cannabis. So that seems to be changing a little bit north of the border here.
Yeah, they got some names here. Do we want to rhyme off some names?
Yeah, sure. Jill Pollard, Allison Gordon, and Myrna Gillis is the first three on the list.
And here's three names I recognize, and that's Hillary Black. She's been involved in cannabis stuff. Oh, geez. In 1997, she founded the BCCCS, it's the British Columbia Compassion Society. So she's been involved in this for years. Lisa Campbell, who we've had on the Pace Radio show. We've interviewed her during the 420 Road shows, behind the green markets, and now she's moved on to cannabis portfolio specialist with Lifford Wines and Spirits. And the last one I'm going to touch on before I hand it over to you, and that's Trina Fraser, who we mentioned earlier. She's a lawyer in Ottawa.
Yeah, great ladies on the list so far. Following, not to be outdone by next one, is Jamie Shaw, another friend of the show that we've had on to visit a couple of times in the past. She heads up MJ. No, I'm sorry. What is the? I've lost it now. My bad. MMJ Canada. There we go. Yeah. MMJ Canada is who she heads up. And then, of course, Tracy Curley, great friend of the show, who even had a medical treatment done live on the air.
That's right.
Radio show. A great advocate and strong female influence in the Toronto area. And last but certainly not least on the list, second last but certainly not least on the list is Arlene Dickinson, who we all know from the Dragon's Den. And, of course, Jody Emery made the list as well.
Yeah, there you go. That's the names. Top 10 ladies in leading the Canadian cannabis industry.
Yeah, so some great names of some great women to watch out for in the future there, doing some great things in the Canadian cannabis movement.
All righty. Well, let's take a break.
Sounds good. Time for a dab.
Yeah, that's right. Time to medicate and time to remind everyone that if you miss our live show, you can always catch the podcast afterwards. I believe at iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube. This week, our news clip comes from CNN with their view on why cannabis legalization in the U.S. is stuck in limbo and then will be burning some with Sean Paul as we come back. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters here on LifestyleRadio.net.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Usually when a federal law clashes with a state law, the federal law wins. But not when it comes to weed. Right now, the federal government says marijuana is illegal. Yet a majority of states have laws that legalize it in some way. That's left weed in a weird legal limbo, and it's created a situation that is nearly unprecedented in U.S. history. The seeds of this issue were first planted in 1970 when Congress passed the Controlled Substances Act, or CSA. Its goal was to ban the use and distribution of illicit substances, including marijuana, as part of the Nixon administration's war on drugs.
Public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
Buried inside that CSA is a section known as the Preemption Clause, and the 76 words that make up that clause have helped states legalize pot more than a quarter of a century later. Remember, federal law usually trumps state law when the two conflict, but in the CSA's Preemption Clause, Congress basically said the Controlled Substances Act should not preempt or override all state drug laws. In other words, they intentionally made the CSA weaker than it could have been, limiting its power. So why did they do it? Well, they didn't really have a choice. Congress needs the states to police drugs. State and local officers make nearly all drug arrests in the U.S. each year. Say local police arrest a man for selling heroin in Georgia. Heroin is illegal at both state and federal levels, but the man will likely only be charged with a Georgia state crime. And that's good enough for federal lawmakers because it means there are fewer drugs on the streets without the federal government having to commit the money and resources to get it done. If the CSA Preemption Clause didn't exist, the Controlled Substances Act would reign supreme over the drug laws and the federal government would be on the hook for enforcing it. See, the federal government can't force states to enforce federal laws. It would likely have to hire an army of DEA agents, appoint dozens of new federal judges, and build a patchwork of federal prisons to make up for the state's law enforcement absence. And the federal government doesn't have the resources to do that. That's why weed is stuck in this legal haze, because the U.S. government relies on states to enforce its ban on weed, except some states don't want to do it. Congress could help clarify the situation if lawmakers rescind the federal weed ban, or they could even rewrite the CSA to alleviate this tension between state and federal law. But given the current political climate, the chances of that happening aren't very high.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with cannabis and coffee with marijuana. Then tune in and catch Pottawa with Russell Barth, who calls himself the world's angriest pothead. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
Everybody in the nation, legalize it right now. We violate one every day. We be burning, not concerning what nobody wanna say. We be earning dollars, turning, cause we minded what we pay. Some got gold and oil and diamonds, all we got is Mary J. Legalize it, time to recognize it. This purple haze crazy, make me crazy, make me write no tune, and that's what pays me. But I'm not the only occupation going to get, so make I give you.
Okay, we're back. We got some medication into us. Hopefully you did as well. And it's time to get right back at her, eh, Kim?
Sounds like a plan, Stan. We're going to Sudbury.com.
Yeah, hey, that's up north, up near you, eh?
Yeah, I got to touch on Northern Ontario a little bit. Not such exciting news in the north, though.
No, that's right. Medical cannabis patient has been fired after 1 day on the job as driving a school bus.
Yeah. And it's funny because we used to live in the town that this was taking place in. Eric Mador was excited about his new job as a bus driver, but he didn't know his first day on the job would also be his last. He was hired by Sinton Landmark to drive a school bus from a route from Collingwood to New Lowell. Now, I used to live in New Lowell, and we were on that route going to the New Lowell Public School for my kids. So I know this route. He was hired, and he knew that he did disclose that he was a legal medical marijuana prescribed patient, and they gave him the job anyway.
No, that's right. They said at the time his superiors weren't concerned about him being able to. All they're concerned about was that he was able to pass the required test to get his Class B driver's license.
Yep, and that was good enough for them. He passed his Class B with flying colors. There was no issues. He's got a clean abstract. That was a 12-year history of his driver's abstract that had absolutely no issues on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you can pass the road test and you have a clean abstract, there shouldn't be really a reason to fire this guy, should
Well,
there?
there was also 1.5 months of testing, which included medical screening, communication with his family doctor who prescribed the cannabis to him, background tests or checks, written tests, driver's tests. Everything was good.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't smoke cigarettes, he doesn't drink alcohol, and he doesn't use his cannabis before he engages in driving. It's a nighttime thing that he uses after work, which many patients do on a regular basis.
Yeah, he did his route that morning in the afternoon. The next day he got a call from the office and said that he was fired.
Yeah, and no real reason given except that it's because of his cannabis use.
Well,
even though
yeah.
it was accepted at the time of his application.
Well, apparently complained that they said that they smelled marijuana. But that was all that's all that they would say. But yet he wasn't in communications with any adults, any parents. He's up on the bus. He said he didn't meet any parents along the way. He didn't use any medical cannabis that day, and he only smokes it in the evening. He didn't even have his device to use to consume it with on him, like a vaporizer.
To me, I think this is more of what this gentleman he called it right. He said he felt like it was a witch hunt. And to me, I know this community, I know the area, I know the way the people that live there think. And if anybody in the parent community that has children on that bus caught wind of the fact that this gentleman was a medical cannabis user, and guaranteed that information got out. The people that work in these companies, live in these in these areas and communities, that information got out. A parent with a stick up their butt is the one that lodged this complaint and cost this guy his job.
Oh, I completely agree. Somebody called it in.
Yeah.
Just in spite.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
nobody smelled anything, but they're using that as their reason.
Yeah, as he says he feels like he's being stigmatized for his choice of medicine.
Yeah,
I don't want to disregard something that's helping. It's helping him with his job. He drives a bus. He's passed all his tests.
He's passed all his tests. He's passed all his medicals. There's been no issue with his driving. He has a clean abstract. This is absolutely discrimination against a medical patient, and I hope this gentleman takes these people to the mat for this.
Yeah, well, there are new laws about the amount of cannabis a driver can have in his or her system. Yeah. And if the vehicle is commercial, starting July the 1st, there's a zero tolerance for any amount of cannabis in a driver's system. However, according to the MTO website, legally authorized medical cannabis users are not subject to the zero-tolerance drug requirements for commercial drivers.
That's right.
They are lawfully allowed to drive commercial vehicles, provided they pass all the screening and the tests like this fella did.
That's right. He complied with all of the rules. The hiring company was aware of the fact that he was a medical patient upon his hiring. There is no clear reason for him to be fired in this situation. He did not deviate from anything that he was supposed to do. Everything he's done above board and the way it was supposed to be done. This is absolutely discrimination. There's no question.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And you know, if he was driving around stoned all the time, or if it was something that was pretty obvious, yeah, there are penalties that could come in, even though he's a medical user. But yeah,
that's not the case here.
That's not the case here. That's right.
Yeah.
And that has to be if the police are involved. And there's no situation here. The police weren't involved in this or anything. This is just a complaint from a parent who basically, like we say, it just sounds like someone just called it in. He was a victim.
For sure.
He's a victim.
Somebody that's uneducated and biased cost this guy his job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All righty, Kim.
From there, where are we off to now, Al?
We're off to now. Well, we're off to find out about what's it like. The experience from the U.S. tells us that the kids will be all right when it comes to cannabis legalization. Yeah, here are buses, kids, right?
Yeah, buses, kids, everything else. I mean, we're keeping it going on the kid line here. And I mean, what a great line it is for anybody that's likes old time rock and roll, so to speak. The kids will tell you the kids will be all right. As the old saying goes, it's been decades, it's been hundreds of years that we've had cannabis use. Eons, centuries that we've had cannabis use in civilization, and we're all fine. The years that have gone by south of the border with legalization, we see what happens in Colorado with the kids, as far as everybody's up in arms about, what about the children? Kids are doing all right south of the border with legalization.
Well, they did like a poll on it, found out before cannabis legalization, 17% of the grade 10 students in Washington State said that they had smoked cannabis in the previous month. 4 years later, after legalization, the number, after another review, the number again is 17% of grade 10 students say that they have smoked cannabis in the previous month. So 4 years, the percentage is still the same. So they don't need adults to get their cannabis.
That's right. It hasn't gone down high, but it hasn't gone up like everybody expected.
Exactly.
They're quoted here in saying, "We thought we would see a significant increase in teen use," said Rick Garza, the director of Washington State Liquor Control Board and Cannabis Board. But what we're seeing here is the kids tell us that they didn't need adults to get their hands on cannabis. If they want it, they'll get it without us.
Yeah. They know where to find it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, I mean, the numbers don't pan out for, the stigma and the up in arms reaction from the general public about what about the kids?
Yeah. Well, apparently in Washington State, cannabis sells for $7 a gram and up, lower than the street price. And then the stores also have promotions such as $2 Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Jeez, $2 Tuesdays.
I'm in on that. I'd be all over that. That's for sure. They've got initiatives there to, keep the price fairly low, to keep people away from the black market, so to speak, or the underground market. They're trying to get people to gravitate towards the legal sales, and keeping prices low is the way to do it. So, I mean, if kids were using that avenue as a way to get their hands on pot, we would see it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hey, it was good to see, like you say, it's good to see the numbers didn't go up, which is very important. So
yeah, for sure.
Because they always say, how they say, it's going to make it more accessible to the kids. They're going to, get it. They're going to
Yeah.
but
What about the kids? Well, you know what? The kids
They're doing all right. They seem to be fine. All righty, let's switch stories.
Yeah, we're gonna change gears a little bit here and do talk about an opinion piece from another friend of the show.
That's right. This is from Judith Stamps, and she's letting everybody know that that this is not cannabis is not a drug; it's a leaf.
That's right. It's an article from Judith Stamps from Cannabis Digest. It's called "A Drug Called Weed." I love the cover that she's used. A quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
This is not a drug; it's a leaf.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It is a leaf, eh?
Yeah, it's quite a lengthy article that Judith touches on many aspects that we're looking at with legalization and the way we view this plant. There's several fragmented posts in here talking about the science and whether or not there's a solution to it all.
Yeah, she says that it's going to turn out. They talk about drugstores because it's going to be at Drug Mart, London Drugs, Drug Emporium, Payless Drugs, Rexall Drugs, Shoppers Drug Mart. So you'd almost think that it's a drug.
Yeah.
Because it's available at all these drugstores.
Yeah, but it's a bud. As she says, it's a bud or weed or some word not yet invented. But it's definitely not a drug.
No. Well, it'll be interesting. I'm just trying to scan through this. Like you said, it is a lengthy article.
Yeah, it is. But it's a very good read coming out of Cannabis Digest.
Yeah.
And on a side note regarding that, as people of the show, friends of the show may be aware, Cannabis Digest has not been in print version for about a year now. They've online only, migrated to online only about a year ago. But that's about to change. And Cannabis Digest will once again be in print form starting in the next couple of months.
Oh, that's good news. Good to hear that. Yeah. Because I know the print part had ceased for a while there. So
yeah. But that will be coming back, which is fantastic news because we enjoyed the Cannabis Digest magazine.
Oh yeah.
Cover was always a coloring venture that you could color in. So it was always nice. I looked forward to getting mine every month.
Yeah, I know lots of other people did around this area as well. There was a lot of stores that covered, a small number, like a half a dozen, 15 copies into a store, and that allowed people to, spread the news around because, I was getting, a couple bundles of them, but I had to share them with everybody, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's getting the word out. Really good articles, great writers.
Yeah.
In the Cannabis Digest magazine there that they have, newspaper that they have. Judith Stamps, of course, is one of them in this particular article, which I just love it. I encourage everybody to read it. Her solution at the end is wonderful. I'm just going to read the conclusion of this. It says, within decades, there will be new cannabis commentary art form. Within centuries, being high on cannabis will be found something found on old maps, whose worlds no longer exist. But with whose knowledge is guarded by secret societies such as the Knights of Cannabis and the Order of Bud. At that point, I believe cannabis fans will be left in peace. Of course, it's also possible that as a society, we will just get more real. But as I watch the new Canadian laws take shape, I'm not betting on it.
No, hopefully they become legal or real. But not everybody's getting what they want in the beginning of legalization, that's for sure. And it's going to be years before. Well, people are still requesting things for alcohol, as far as
It'll be an evolving situation.
It's going to be an evolving situation
to come.
Yeah, exactly. It's still, even in this election, Doug Ford has been bringing up here in Ontario about making alcohol available in corner stores and stuff like that. So, we're still almost 100 years from alcohol, from its legalization.
Good old
And
Doug Ford and his buck of beer, right?
yeah, right. Yeah, that's all we need. Make it cheaper for people to buy something that has. Yeah, and the beer industry wants more tax on the cannabis too, right?
Yeah. Save the beer.
All right. Let's ditch the beer and head to Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia, some nasty stuff going on in Georgia for one family that's reeling from the state's interference with how they're treating their child's medical condition.
Yep, they say that they gave their son cannabis to treat his seizures and now are fighting to gain the custody of him. The state took custody of their 15-year-old son in April when he tested positive for cannabis, and they were charged with reckless conduct and are facing jail time.
I mean, we're not talking about a little baby here. We're not talking about a toddler. We're talking about a 15-year-old boy.
Who has 10 seizures or 10 seizures to 70 seizures a day.
Yeah, up to 70 seizures a day. These parents have tried all conventional medicines and none have worked. We've seen this played out in Canada many times where the parents have tried all the conventional means, they don't work. Last resort is cannabis. It works, and then there's issue with children's services.
Oh, for sure. And I just want to make a correction there. He was dealing with 10 seizures a day. And then when they gave him the cannabis, he was going 71 days seizure free.
Oh, there we go. 71 days seizure free after 10 per day.
Oh, for sure. Yes, exactly.
300 seizures a month.
That saved him 700 seizures over that time.
Yeah.
And they're worried about what effect cannabis THC would have on his brain, but not. He's got 700 seizures in that time he didn't have.
That's right. What did those 700 seizures, what effect did they have on his brain?
Yeah. Oh, as they say, for their son, it was a miracle, for him to go that long.
So, I mean, it shows us, people in certain parts of this land are still fighting extreme fights that are come down to life and death decisions, and trying to do the right thing by your children when it's against the law. You're taking a big risk, but these parents are doing it because it's what their kids need. When will the law catch up to the science?
I don't know, but Georgia has some of the strictest cannabis laws in the country. Physicians are not allowed to prescribe cannabis for medical use, and it's illegal to sell or possess it. But the law does allow those with state-issued medical cards to possess low THC oil, which, by the way, to get that medical card, you're looking at a 6-year waiting list. This boy doesn't have 6 years to wait for his medical cannabis.
No, it doesn't. And this goes to show why the United States needs a federal regime, much like Canada is doing now. Now, I'm not saying copy ours because it's not perfect by any means for anyone to copy, but come up with something so that people in these states that are so hard-nosed about cannabis have some options to treat their children. At least come out with a medical regime of some sort that will protect everybody across that nation.
And the father even protected the son by smoking the cannabis first before allowing his son to even take any, just in case there was something that was wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing what they have to do, taking the precautions that they can with the means that are at their disposal. There's no testing labs available there because it's so strictly regulated. You can't just drop it off somewhere and find out what's in it. So he's doing what he has to do to protect his kid.
Yeah, well, they got busted after someone alerted the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services. The couple spent 6 days in jail, and which happens to be on April the 20th. The son was removed from them that day. He had a seizure and had to be rushed to hospital. He didn't get his medical cannabis. 71 days without a seizure. They take him away from his cannabis, and he has a seizure.
And that's over. And now these parents are facing the charges. They're looking at a criminal case, as well as the loss of their child, and the child is now going to be suffering from traumatic seizures on a regular basis because he doesn't have the meds he needs. Just a sad situation coming out of Georgia.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's very sad. Hopefully they get this all rectified. We'll have to follow that up.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be keeping our eye on that one for sure. From Georgia, we're going to stay in the States and bounce on over to Ohio.
Ohio, that's right. They are preparing to announce the medical cannabis licensees, but it's been put on a delay.
Yeah, apparently. I'm going to let you take this away while I try and catch up because this is one I haven't read yet.
Yeah. Well, they were hoping to announce where people could actually purchase medical cannabis beginning this September. There's 6 dispensary licenses are the next step, which will be issued by the Ohio state, which is required to grow and sell medical cannabis beginning September the 8th. Let's see. But it had to be put on hold. So
yeah, well, they're not quite ready. But it is encouraging to see that Ohio is mandating allowing the edible products as well.
Yeah, well, they've had 100 groups apply. There's a delay in validating these things, so they got a little bit more overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, they've got to send out all the inspectors and make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, so to speak, and the facilities are ready to go and pass all their inspections and all of that stuff, and then they'll be opening. So, yeah. I mean, a delay is there, but at least it's happening in Ohio.
That's right, and they're going to give those 40 licenses to people for the edibles.
Yeah, and that's fantastic that there's going to be 40 provisional licenses given out. Many, patients across the country use edibles from everything from Parkinson's to epilepsy to chronic pain.
Yeah. And their law requires the doctors to get certificates to recommend medical cannabis to the patients. So the doctor has to be certified.
Yeah.
And then those patients can have one of 21 conditions, Parkinson's, epilepsy, and many more.
Yeah.
So it's good to see, another state is looking at getting, the medical cannabis. But it's odd, what about people in Ontario? We're across the border. Shouldn't we be concerned about what's going across the border?
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, this works two ways, They always say, well, the U.S. is going to shut down their border. Well, Canada, we got a lot of U.S. states that are legal for medical or legal for recreational up along the border, but we never hear any threats from our Canadian government to shut down the U.S. border.
No, of course not. Working the other way, we're far more liberal thinking than our U.S. counterparts on a federal level. Thank God. But yeah, great. Stuff coming out of Ohio. I mean, what a switch from Georgia to Ohio in one country that we can see such a vast difference.
Yes, that's right. And let's head, while we're in the U.S., let's head off to Allentown.
This Allentown story gets under my skin, I gotta tell you.
All right, let her rip.
Allentown Mayor, I love you, Ray O'Connell. You're on board. You're trying to help out your citizens. You passed a bill decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana, making Allentown the 7th municipality in the state to take such action. Unfortunately, Allentown Police Chief doesn't quite agree, and he says, I don't care what the mayor says, we're going to enforce federal law.
That's right. He's going to enforce the law that way. He's going to ignore the mayor on this. The city's mayor, so it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, government that's on board and trying to make change, but now the chief of police takes a stand against the town. Doesn't the town pay the chief's salary?
Yes, the chief does. Not the town does, not the state.
That's right. Mr. Chief of Police, you got to look at who you're working for here. You ain't working for the feds. You aren't no G-man, as they say down there. You're a state cop.
Yeah. And the mayor says that Now, all what they're trying to do is they're not trying to address the legalization of cannabis. They are simply saying that possession of a small amount of it should be handled with a summons and not arrest and possibly jail time.
Yeah, I mean, the mayor sees what's happening in Allentown's courthouses. They're overpopulated with cannabis offenses, and it's causing issues for other serious crimes to make it to court in a timely manner. This will go a long way to alleviate that, but apparently Allentown's police chief is not of the same mind.
No, and just so you know, the law that the mayor proposed was, or actually would have passed and all that, and the chief refuses to enforce, $25 fine.
Yeah, $25 fine. So, I mean, fair enough. Okay, I'm caught with my pot. I'll pay my $25 fine, and I don't have to go to jail or to court or anything else. Most citizens will be good with that. Puts money into the coffers of the city, and it frees up the courts. But I guess the prejudice and bias against cannabis that this particular police chief has just outweighs all the logic.
Yeah, well, here their district attorney, Jim Martin, says that state law supersedes local ordinance. And it turns out that this is for the local police, not a state police. So, he's being paid by the city. He's not being paid by the state. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd be looking at replacing my chief police. So, Mr. Allentown Police Chief, I kind of think maybe your days are numbered.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. See what happens, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, we've been through the United States. We've talked about the Senate, and we've talked about a lot today. We had a lot more, but there's only so many minutes in an hour, right?
That's right. And we've been, hey, we're good today. We're only been an hour, now an hour and 15. Okay, all right. Well, that's our Reefer Report for May the 28th of June the 4th, 2018. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening to it. And if you enjoyed it, please share it with those you love and those you don't. And don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Bark at you later.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.